All right, so I got like a ton of notes because we have a lot to talk about today, friends. I was recently watching one of my favorite YouTubers. Her name is Erica Lucas, and I just love her authenticity. She was talking about the idea of letting go, and she was having a really hard time letting go of a shelf that she didn't use and didn't use for years. And she was talking about the whole idea of the questions we have to ask ourselves and how we trick ourselves sometimes into keeping things that we should just let go. And why do we have such a hard time with letting go of things even when we know we can't use them, even when we know that they've been sitting around for years and we're just are never going to find a place to put them? Why can we not let it go? So Dr. Dani Gagnon said that the first step of letting go involves identifying the core emotions you are feeling and understanding what those emotions are trying to communicate to you. Emotions are fundamental sources of information about ourselves and our environment. These are core feelings.
I'm too sad to walk. Just give me a few hours.
That if you're a millennial like me, often we were told to push them down as far as possible, but it is a big problem with letting go if you do not identify these core fundamental feelings and why you're feeling them. So as we go on through this video, we're going to talk about each of these feelings, and I'm going to identify ways that I've dealt with these exact feelings as I was decluttering my entire home. If you're starting out on your minimalist journey and you're anything like me, you probably can relate to guilt. Guilt is that feeling of I bought way too much, spent way too much, and now I have all of these things. And often I would find myself even trying to hide the packages that I was getting from Amazon and Target and hiding them away from my husband, which seems insane now. Also, when we got a Ring doorbell, there was no hiding the amount of packages that I was getting. There was no ability to sneak things in anymore because everything that I brought in was seen on that camera. Honestly, having a Ring doorbell was probably the biggest wake-up call for me in general when it came to feeling guilty. I was bringing in all these things, and why was I hiding them? It was because I felt guilt. I knew I didn't need these things. I knew that I shouldn't be buying these things, and yet I didn't know how to control myself. So in that time when I finally really recognized that this was a feeling I no longer wanted to have anymore, I needed to start actually walking the walk, not just talking the talk of being a minimalist. I had to start making some really significant changes in my spending habits. The scary thing that goes along with guilt, at least for me, was that when I would feel all this guilt, that awful feeling of shame would be linked with it. And so there was a book that I read by Brené Brown. It's called The Gift of Imperfection. It's all about shame, which was something I really needed to hear. But she said that shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And that is exactly why it was so hard for me to admit my wrong, admit that I was overspending, admit to myself that this was something that I wasn't in control over. And once I did that, once I had, if you've watched my other videos, I had this conversation with my husband and I kept decluttering and then buying more things. And he said, either stop decluttering and just enjoy the things you have and stop spending money and enjoy what you have, or declutter these things, but do not bring anything more in. You are wasting money. And man, it shook me and woke me up, and it was painful. And often when we are growing, it's painful. Basically, forgiving yourself, saying I made some big mistakes, and being able to acknowledge that you did something wrong, but it was okay because you didn't know what you were doing at the time. One of my favorite all-time quotes is by one of my heroes, Maya Angelou. And she said basically to do the best that you can with what you know now. And when you know better, do better. I know that's not an exact quote, but that's the best I can get right now. But I live with that quote in my heart. We are not always going to make perfect choices for ourselves when it comes to letting go and being able to move on from all these things we brought into our house. But sitting in that guilt shame storm is not helping you and not going to make you grow. So reparations, like I said, make yourself a budget. These things can make you feel like you have your control back. So the next core emotion that we're gonna have to work through as we're letting go is regret. I identify with this one because it was one of the first feelings that I felt when I got stuck, when I couldn't let go. And before we dig a little bit more into that whole story, often when I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, therapy was never something that I would ever have considered, or really, it was taboo.
Think of my office as a nest in a tree of trust and understanding. We can say anything here.
Anything.
But now it's amazing how open we are to really getting the emotional support, the help that we need in order to work through these core emotions. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about therapy, I myself have done some research, and one of my favorite therapy apps, because let's be real, we don't have time to go into an office, is Therapy Online. And so I actually reached out to them so that I could do this sponsorship, and I wanted to give you a 20% off discount code. It's right down in the description. If you are working through these emotions and still having a hard time just like I was, and you are looking for some extra unbiased help, then this is a great website that you can try out a lot of different therapists and find something that's comfortable for you. I think it's like $40 a week, which sounds like a lot, but if we're really honest, that's just one meal out these days if we're going to a restaurant. So this is a great way to really be able to work through these core emotions and to get unstuck. So like I said, regret is where I started. And it really started because I felt like my life wasn't going the way it was supposed to go. I was supposed to have 2 children by about 4 years ago, and they were going to grow up and have great times, and we were going to move on to a different house, and everything was going to be great. And I just thought my life was going to be a certain way, and then it didn't happen. I have a beautiful, lovely, amazing, creative daughter, and while I am so grateful for that, the hard thing is that it doesn't matter what other people tell us if we should be grateful for things. It matters what we think. And the constant regret that was in my head that I couldn't have what I thought I deserved to have ate me alive. And so when I was going through this whole storm of regret and I was trying to declutter, I kept all of my daughter's stuff. I had like 3 huge bins of things. I had her crib. I had everything basically that she ever touched. And it wasn't bringing me the happiness, the satisfaction, the, joy that I thought it would in keeping all of these things. It brought me a lot of anguish. And I finally got over it when I read another book called The Book of Joy. It is by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And I really didn't know anything about these 2 people before I read this book, but honestly, The Book of Joy has to be one of my favorite books I've ever read in my whole life. And it really identified to me, why am I living in a cycle where I am causing myself more pain than I need to? And it also helped me remember that there are lots of people in the same situation that I am. And while that doesn't sound like it would help, it does. It just reminded me that I'm not alone, that this is hard. I don't have to live in that regret that my life didn't turn out the way I thought it should if I don't want to. I am able to help myself and find happiness in the joys that I'm experiencing in life. But after reading that book, I got rid of all of my daughter's things that I had been storing in the attic. Now, of course, I have a few sentimental things downstairs that I keep, but getting rid of all of that pile of regret that my life wasn't the way it was supposed to felt so good. And when I finally was able to let it all go, I don't live in a state of regret anymore. I live looking forward. And so if you are stuck in regret, there are a few things that you can try. What really helped me is to stop focusing on the past. When it came to holding on to all these things, holding on to this life I was supposed to have, it helped me to let go and move past that and start talking and looking and scheduling and envisioning the future and what my future was going to have instead of always living in the past. All right, so now on to anger and sadness. This is a very key core emotion. These two often go together. And we're going to talk about how to move through this so that you can start letting go of those things in your house that you just don't need or want, but you can't let go of. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to get out your journal maybe or your phone and go to notes and start writing why you feel so angry and sad when you're looking at this particular item. Why do you identify those core feelings? Maybe somebody left too soon and passed away and you weren't prepared for that to happen. Maybe you went through a divorce that was painful, or you just didn't want it to happen. And you're sad that things turned out the way they did. And you're angry that they didn't turn out the way you thought they were supposed to. When it comes to anger and sadness, for me, what I just talked about with regret, all these feelings were mixed together. I was not only regretful that my life didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, I was angry at the world that my life didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. I was angry that the world didn't give me what I thought I deserved. And living in that anger, sadness, regret became an identity for me, but not an identity I wanted to live as, just one that I thought is the only person that I could be, is to hang on to all these things and be angry at the world that the world didn't do what I thought it should. Like I said, those pictures in our brain of the way we think our life should have gone are the most painful to get rid of, the most painful to let go of. Whether you are hanging on to that whole huge oversized set of bedroom furniture because maybe your partner died, maybe it was too soon, or you just weren't prepared and people left us anyway. Hanging on to all of their things and living in a state of sadness and remembering all this sadness and anger on a constant basis is so draining, exhausting. And keeping all of these things because we think that we should have deserved a different life is not going to help you to grow. It's not going to help you to live happily in your home and be able to move past these feelings. And we're living in this pain and sadness because people didn't do what we thought they would, or things happened in life that we didn't think should have. But living in anger and sadness is only going to destroy the possible amazing future that you could have with living in a lighter home, breathing easier in your home, and being happier on a day-to-day basis with just the little things in life. When you are constantly in a state of anger, believe me, you cannot see the little bits, the little shining, glistening moments of your life that are so beautiful. You're missing them. I have done this myself. Please don't feel like there is any judgment in what I am saying. I'm literally telling you this because I've already done all of these things. And I've already lived through all of this. And so maybe if I'm one step beyond where you are now, I could help you to work through that so much faster and so much easier and without as much pain by telling you these things. All right, friends, I know that was a lot to digest, and I would love to dig into this a little bit more if you guys are interested, because these core emotions are things often we don't talk about, we don't identify, but they're the biggest reasons why we are still stuck with all of our stuff. And we're not able to let go of, like, the shelf, like Erica was talking about, the regret, the guilt of buying something, keeping it forever, and then not using it. But can I let it go? What if? All of these things, all of these emotions we have can be worked through, and we can live a better, simpler, more minimalist life. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, then let's take another journey and click on one of these videos right here. And I can't wait to talk to you a little bit more about this. So if you have enjoyed this video, then throw a comment down below about maybe an emotion that you are working through right now or that you have in the past. All right, I'll see you guys again soon.